Hello and welcome to the coronavirus update for the 31st of May 2020, where there are now more than 6 million cases in the world. Over a third of a million people have died from this. And I wanted to look at two things today. The first is the third wave of the virus, which I'll explain in a second. And the second one is Trump actually pulling out of the World Health Organization and why this is a really dumb thing to do. Even if all of his criticisms of the World Health Organization were perfectly valid, pulling out of the WHO would still be a really stupid thing to do. So I'm going to go on to that as well. So we've got two plots that we can look at. This is for the world, by the way. We can take a look at it in terms of cumulative cases, like this. These are cumulative confirmed cases, or we can take a look at the daily cases. So this is basically how much active virus there is in the world on a day-to-day basis. So we are still going up, and so I would break the this virus into basically three distinct outbreaks. The first one was China. That's all of this at the beginning is basically China. And then it looked like it was mostly contained, but it hadn't. It had spread to Italy, and from Italy it went to America and to the rest of the world. And this is basically the outbreak number 2. And it was about this time, when there's 100,000 new cases per day. There was about 1/3 of the entire planet had some sort of restriction on people due to the virus. And that means that, in most of these countries by now, it's starting to tick downwards. So how can it be that the cases are going up again? And it's basically because it spread to the 2/3 of the world that weren't in some sort of quarantine. And yeah, so let's take a look at this from the start. So we've got China now, who is almost like out of the top 20 in terms of total number of confirmed cases. Although in many ways it's unfair. Virtually all of China's cases were in a region with about 50 odd million people in it. So really you ought to be comparing this to a country in Europe rather than a country of China's got 1 billion people. Number of people in this province is 60 million or something. So it's comparable to Germany, Spain, Italy, England, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, they peak out very early. They peak out at about 4,000 odd cases per day, beginning of February. And they look, their quarantine kicks in, and they sort of get it mostly under control in about a month after that. However, by then it had spread to Italy, who, you see it cooks up almost immediately after China. And yeah, they're peaking out, getting on for a month later. And the same was true of almost everywhere else in Europe. So Spain peaks out at about the same time. UK peaks out a little bit later, longer tail. Germany, very, very similar. So, great. These all look like they're kind of under control. They're all relaxing their quarantine measures. And there's no great signs of a resurgence, which I still don't greatly understand. So I've been in... I live in Europe at the moment, and I would have expected there to have been more of an uptick in this, given that... all right, people are engaging in some social distancing, they're wearing masks, but basically other than that, they've gone back to business as normal. So the masks are much more effective, or these little tweaks have a huge effect on the virus. But I expected to see more of a resurgence than this with the relaxation of the quarantine. Now, obviously it takes 2 weeks to cook up, but so if you relax the quarantine, it takes a little while for the virus to start to spread, for you to start to notice it. But it looks pretty hopeful. America, just so you know, I'll look at their numbers in more detail in a little bit, but it's coming down slowly. But the US is no longer the country that's handled this the worst. The worst by far is Brazil. So if you just take a look at their, aggregated cases, it's a pretty decent exponent. And you take a look at their daily cases, they're still going boom. And this is, I think his name Bolsonaro, who basically said, coronavirus, shimonavirus, it's just a little flu. Be a man, get over it. Yeah, that doesn't work out so well with contagious diseases. So they are now actually, in terms of daily cases, they're up to 30,000 per day, which means they are now number one in terms of country with the most new cases per day. And Russia also cooked up a little later, but so Russia's got about half the population of America. So, they're also in this region of, per capita competing with America. So yeah, it's places like Brazil and a load of these South American countries are they're cooking up pretty badly, and India too. India is. I worry about India. I worry about India because I'm not entirely certain how good their testing is, and in order to get lots of cases, you need good testing and lots of sick people. If you've got lots of sick people but no testing, your numbers are going to be deflated somewhat. And I got a suspicion that this is maybe what's happening with India. But I mean, India is, again, no signs of slowing down, and they are relaxing their social distancing even at that. So yeah, if you take a look at the wide world, all world numbers together, it's starting to go up again, and you can sort of see it. There's the stage 1, you get this little hookup. Stage 2, you get this little hookup. Stage 3, yeah, probably. And the thing is, this, just like the China outbreak was completely dwarfed by the outbreak that followed it, this one has the potential of doing the same. So it remains to be seen that if any of these other countries can learn the lessons of what America and Europe screwed up. I mean, again, I've got to put this in there. South Korea puts everyone else to shame. They shut it down almost completely with, I think it was 200 deaths. Country of 50 million people, and they got by with something like 200 deaths. And even at that, they've not made, they're getting resurgences. All right, they're only 30 cases per day, but 50 cases per day. But it's not wiped out by any stretch of the imagination. And you want to take a look how long it's going to take other countries to get down to this sort of manageable numbers. So you'll recall I said I was going to take a look at the American numbers in greater detail. So the first one I'm going to take a look at is how long America is going to take to get back down to numbers of 10 or 20 cases per day. Bear in mind that the American state of emergency was declared when there were about 500 cases in the country. So that's this is basically days past peak. This is number of new cases per day in thousands. Very early on, I made a prediction from just the blue data where I thought you would get down to the state of emergency level of new cases per day. And it's deviating upwards. So it's going to be a long time before America gets down to really manageable numbers. But you'll also recall that I had this model for the total number of deaths, which I started about here somewhere, which is about a month ago now, just over a month. And that was my prediction for the number of deaths. This is total number of deaths here. This would be deaths per day. So it was about here that I made my prediction of what I thought the deaths per day was going to do. And again, it's ticking upwards. You can see that it's going to be a longer tail than what I've got here. You know, Mark One Eyeball says it's going to even out about this sort of region, 130, 140,000 cases. But just to show you, I can actually copy that sheet to here, and I can show you just how little I have to revise the model to get a much better fit to the data. So what you got here is, this is what I thought the spread rate would do. So this is it's a sort of, it's the rate of change of the number of people who die per day. Let's ignore that one. let's just go for this one. This is the total number of people who die per day. And my model was that, I think it's mind-blowingly simple. Yeah, there it is. There is just a 5% reduction in the number of people who die per day. That's my model. And then you just integrate that up and you get the blue line on the top plot. So let's show you just how sensitive all these numbers are. Right, so let's change it from a 5% reduction in the number of people who die per day to what's that? That was 5. So let's go to a 2% reduction in the number of people who die per day. And at that, you can see that, yeah, it's basically linear. So that's clearly bad. So what was it? It was 95. So let's go the other way. Let's go 2 points down, 95 to 93. And, right, we were at 95. That was my best guess. And I think if I just put this to 96, so it's a 4% reduction in the number of people who die per day. That's all I did, is I changed the reduction of the number of people who die per day by 1%. And yeah, okay, so yeah, Mark One Eyeball told you you'd end up in this sort of region. So somewhat over 120,000 is the best guess. But of course, this assumes that no surprises. And I'm very doubtful about the no surprises thing. So, I mean, the nice thing is the virus doesn't seem to be spreading as much as I thought it would after the relaxation of the social distancing. That's fantastic. It's maybe possible that there are some atmospheric things also, you know, like I was saying, the difference in the model that I made here was just changing the number of people who die per day by 1%, right? So, you know, if it's getting warmer and that makes a 1% reduction in the spread rate, this is significant. However, you know, that's only going to last till, summertime. So this is the worry that it might sort of invert. And yeah, just to remind you what 1% the other way looks like. This was 95, you will recall, was my initial model. 96 was like that. And if I reduced it to 97, then all of a sudden, that's the difference between, you know, 120,000 and over 150,000 dying. And yeah, this will plateau up probably around 200,000 or something. So, and that's just assuming there are no extra surprises on board here. Right, which brings us on to the other thing that I wanted to talk about today, which was Trump withdrawing from the World Health Organization, which is just dumb on so many levels, right? And let's just give Donald Trump every single one of his criticisms about the World Health Organization being in China's pocket, their China toadies, and so on and so forth. We'll give him every single one of his criticisms as being valid, right? So the WHO in this case is a defective warning system. And now Donald Trump has moved the United States to zero warning system. Now, yeah, so it really is like that. A defective smoke alarm is worth more to you than no smoke alarm. You know, if it only goes off, 20% of the time, you're still better off having it than not having it. If it goes off late sometimes, you're still better off having it than not having it. In any event, I think that the criticisms of the World Health Organization, by eradicating smallpox, the only virus ever to be eradicated, that affects humans. They eradicated smallpox. They had a very good go at eradicating polio. For that alone, it's worth funding the World Health Organization. To pull out of it, how is America now going to get its information about new viruses that crop up elsewhere in the world? How? It's got no mechanism. Right? The thing that was nice about the WHO is there are people in all countries, and there was a central organization where basically everyone agreed that there were certain levels of stuff that they would cooperate on. Now, America, Trump might think that, the cooperation was more one-sided than the other. I don't think that's greatly true, in that you take a look at the World Health Organization's warnings. They declared this international public emergency, what was it, before the end of February? I mean, you take a look. This is when the WHO declares international health emergency, and basically America didn't do anything for a month. So it really is, if you're looking to blame the World Health Organization for this, it's just not compatible with the facts. And the reality is, it's a virus, and if you're looking for someone to blame for the virus coming into your country, then it's basically the people who run the country, because they should have been more geared up to dealing with something like this and should have had screening and quarantine at the airports, because that's basically how all of this spread. You take a look at the early cook-ups from all these cases in China. Then it spread basically to Italy, and from there to the rest of the world. Anyway, so I'm going to call it quits there. I'd like to know, I mean, for those Trump fans out there, or people who think that this is all China's fault, I'll give you it all right? But tell me how you are now going to get information on viruses in other countries if you're no longer a member of the World Health Organization. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you found that useful, give it a thumbs up, and maybe consider subscribing. And if you really like this stuff, you can support this channel directly on Patreon, and I'll leave the links below. And thanks for watching.